All right. Should we go ahead and, oh, we've got one more minute.
Hey, John.
I think he wants to sit up here.
Come on up here.
Come on up here by me.
Oh, he's parking in front of the cookies.
We'll bring the
You can
cookies
bring
with
the
you.
cookies with you. I don't blame you. Tina Pelton made all those.
I didn't even see the cookies. All I saw was
I
the
saw them
little
right
baby
away.
Grinch candies. Did you see? Did
Did you bring these?
No, I stole them from Tina. No, I thought that you brought them. No, I know her Tina keeps all the good stuff and I went and raided it because she wasn't
I
here.
will, yeah. There you go.
Thank you
You
very much.
you start.
All right, it is 6 o'clock. So I will call the meeting to order. Gabe is not able to join us today, but otherwise, we have a quorum. First order of business is to accept the minutes from the December 7th regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
It is a long minutes and thank you so very much to Carrie. They were perfect.
Carrie.
Here, here. It was a
Well
complex
done.
discussion and it was well captured.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any visitors' comments? Hearing none. Ferry service update. It was a long discussion and appreciate John you coming back to continue to keep us updated.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to report. Following the meeting, I did have a couple of discussions with Mark Higgins. I had some discussions with Fred Porter. I put Mark, and I know Mark and Fred got together and had a long discussion, and I think things are back down on an even keel, which is where we were before, which is not perfect, but it's a lot better than what was getting rumored about the last time we saw it.
Microphone on. No, that's all. Microphone.
Mute yourself.
Oh, okay. I thought somebody was asking a question. I'm sorry.
I think it was just-
So, we're kind of back to where we were, which is the ultimate discretion still rests with the ferry captain as to whether or not the ferry will run. But I think the communications issues have been rectified, at least for the time being. And I think everyone's on the same page. So hopefully those troubled waters are a bit calmer.
Are they gonna do the phone thing?
The cell phone, I think, they are going to do that. And I think that the line of communication now is directly to the captain as opposed to the crew.
That makes
good.
so much more sense.
So that's all good. There's only one other thing I wanted to bring up vis-a-vis the ferry, which is that I had some brief discussions with Fred about this, and there's a lot of history here, but I got an email from Bill Palmer, who's the COO of DOT. And he expressed in that email that DOT is interested in working with any of the 4 islands that may want to partner in moving forward with an emergency boat, under the concept that Maine DOT would cover the capital cost of the boat, and then someone else would be responsible for the operations.
Operations and upkeep, or does that mean?
I assume everything, but everything's on the table too.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think their best case scenario would be, we'll buy you a boat and
Yeah.
good luck.
And good luck.
And I get that. But I think, there's a lot of things in the middle too.
Yeah.
And there's also, I talked to Fred briefly, and I've also took the liberty of just calling Earl McKenzie, because this ain't the first rodeo here. I mean, this has happened before with not much success. And there's all kinds of rabbit holes that you can run down here. Like, is it going to be one island, or is it going to be all the islands? Is it going to be a big, beautiful 70-foot boat that can go 35 miles an hour in a hurricane? Or is it going to be maybe Quicksilver on steroids? Who knows? I mean, there's a million permutations here, and then who's gonna run it, where's it gonna be? And I mean, I think DOT would like to say bye-bye, but I also think that we would want to negotiate and say, look, if this thing can't run as a last resort, you know, if the ferry can run, still, but whatever, there's all kinds of things. And I dread saying this, but I think it's probably worth following up on. And so what I would like to propose is that maybe we have a small committee. And I was thinking, I talked to Phil about it, and I talked to Earl about it. And I'm thinking maybe just 3 people, and because otherwise, I think you could talk this thing to death, and I don't want to do that. And but I thought that and Earl's this has been attempted 15 or 20 years ago. There were lots of discussions and never came to fruition, of course. But I will say one thing. But here are some possible permutations. If all the islands got together and created a nonprofit, the most central location, I think, would probably be Stonington, and the boat could be manned by 2. I mean, if you design it properly, you could have 2 people on call somewhere in that area, paid for by all the islands in some sort of fair way, in a perfect world. Because Stonington's about 12 miles or 15 miles from everybody. But, you know, it takes money, and it would be just what the ferry service is facing right now: personnel costs and operational costs. So meaning fuel or whatever. On the other hand, I did hear at the EMS meeting that they have every year at the Samoset, that there was discussion about maybe having it kept in Castine and manned by MMA people, which would be actually kind of cool. Community service thing. Maybe not manned all the time, but most of the time. And I think MMA might be semi-interested in that. Maybe I just have a trustee out there. Maybe I could talk them into being interested in it.
Yeah,
But it's just something to explore. So I could talk to them about it.
I really like your idea of a small committee, and I think Phil and Earl and you would be a good combination of people. That'd be my view.
Okay, and I actually talked to Fred too about maybe kind of just being a resource, because this ain't his first rodeo either. But Phil's got, some EMS background too, so so that was my thought. So
I appreciate your willingness to continue to go down the rabbit hole and do the investigation, because I mean, we don't know until, we need to look at the options. It's an important issue, and I appreciate your willingness and your patience to follow through on all the conversations that have happened to date, and that will continue to happen through this committee.
Do we need a motion to appoint that committee, just so that they have go ahead from us? So I move that we have are you willing to be honored?
Yeah, I was just wondering, does Earl know about?
I'm not sure. I might want to get back to you on whether or not I can formally ask him to be on the committee. I talked to him about helping out.
Yeah.
And I did say I try to keep, but maybe you could see, I'm gonna be out of town for a little while.
Yeah.
So why don't we wait until we formally establish anything until after the other 2 parties?
What I could do is I'll talk to Earl again, and then maybe at your next meeting, I can talk to Phil, and if everyone's on the same wavelength, we could establish the committee. I think it probably ought to be a town committee, because if it's a town committee, we'll have to give notice of the meetings and have it public, and everything's in public and everything, but hopefully nobody will come.
Good luck on that one.
Except for Fred. Fred, you can come.
And Of course, you could always zoom in.
Well, I'm planning the first meetings, I think, would have to be by Zoom. I mean, I'm not gonna fly back from Albuquerque to. No. But I'll be back in, April and May, so, and in the meantime, we can have some, my thought would be that is if the committee is established, we could have some preliminary meetings. And just throw all this, I mean, the permutations on this are infinite
Yeah,
right now.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that maybe we could kind of narrow things down. Because what I'd like to do ultimately is come back to you folks and say, these are what we think might be viable options, A, B, or C, or we might come back and say, nah, it's never gonna work, who knows? But it's kind of, it's an interesting offer.
Yeah.
But, it might be a rusty old bridge we're getting, I don't know.
you still have the same logistics, low tides and so forth, versus just driving an ambulance down onto a ferry boat.
That's absolutely right, yeah.
Unless it was a small landing craft.
Well, there are actually, Earl, I talked to Earl about this, because I've done some research on this too, and Scandinavia is so far ahead of us, they're light years ahead of us. And they've got all kinds of different permutations, but they actually have some vessels where the ambulance, I'm not quite sure how it gets there, goes on the foredeck of the boat. And off you go.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if it's by crane or by landing craft type thing. It looked to me like it just goes on the foredeck.
And something like that can go 30 miles an hour?
I don't think that one goes 30 miles an hour,
It
if-
wouldn't have to if it was, depending on where it's stationed, moored.
right, I mean, if you did the whole island thing and you're talking Stonington, then you want the thing to go about 30 knots. Because it's a good 16 to 8, depending upon the route you take. And first, you gotta get out of the harbor in Stonington. We would actually be about by 3 miles of the furthest if you were to go to Grindle Point from Stonington. On the other hand, if it's Castine, would clearly be if you went to Turtlehead. Or we had a docking facility up there, it's 3 miles.
Yeah.
Which, and then just boom, right over to Belfast. But like I said, the possibilities are endless.
Call your friends at casting.
Well, I can bring it up with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would actually be a great thing for the students myself. But they might not be, I need to figure out how many of the students go on that training, trip
Yeah, there's
every,
always the issue of the Coast Guard too and licensing and.
Mhm.
all that stuff. Oh, yeah, yeah, I know, and a lot, and then it's kind of big, how big's the boat, how many people do you need, what's the licensure situation?
30 knots, 12 miles, about 25 minutes, just to cover that distance.
Yeah.
With it at 30. Like you say, though, you gotta put it in the harbor, that's not gonna be at 30.
No, you putz out of the harbor and then I mean,
Yeah.
it's all, we'll have those discussions, we don't need you. Well, I won't bore you, but so, at least for tonight's purposes, let me get in touch with Earl and see if he's willing to do that under that, and then I'll let Phil know, and if you want to establish that committee, then we can proceed. I don't know if we'll have any answers for that, but we'd come back, I don't know, end of the summer or something. And then I'll let Bill know that, well, once we do something, I'll let DOT know that, we're at least
Looking at.
considering it. And in all fairness, I can take the laboring more on this too. I can reach out to the other islands since I know all these folks from the advisory board and see if there's any interest there.
What is it, the one that works for Peaks Island and Diamond and those islands in Casco Bay
Yeah.
are served out of Casco?
Casco Bay Lines.
It's Casco Bay Lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hey.
No,
Bert-
they don't do the emergency service.
They do not. This, down in Casco Bay, the city of, well, at least I don't know about Cliff Island, and I don't know about Shabby, because that's a separate town now, it used to be part of Cumberland.
Yeah,
But the Portland, Long Island and Peaks and the Diamonds and those guys, they're all part of Portland, and Portland has a fireboat that
Yeah.
also is an ambulance boat.
Yeah.
And that's how they do the medical evacuations down there.
Great.
Hopefully, we don't need a fireboat.
Is Mert on?
Oh, Doug has his, go ahead, Doug.
You're muted.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Good, very good. I just want to make sure that I understand. John, you said things are kind of back the way they were, but in the priority of the way emergencies will be handled, does that mean the ferry would come before Quicksilver, before Life Flight, or would Life Flight be first? Maybe I didn't hear it all straight.
The triaging will be done by Fred and the health center, as I understand it, who will decide what the best methodology is depending upon the circumstances, and they will act accordingly.
What will the ferry take them? So that means that if I'm not sure what that means. I mean, if the weather's calm and the ferry could go, the ambulance would be the one to act on directly onto the ferry without loading, unloading, flying, whatever, right?
It depends upon, from my discussions with Fred, it depends upon the patient's condition. If the patient is ambulatory, or if the transfer to Quicksilver is not considered to be difficult, then it's pretty much up to Fred and the health center folks to decide whether or not Quicksilver or the ferry is most appropriate.
Cardiac issue, usually fly by helicopter right to the hospital, serious cardiac issues.
Yeah, and in the previous ones, there was a talk about how they had to call the Coast Guard first to get an authorization. It's kind of like a way an HMO works. You got to call for an authorization. Is that still the case, or is the Coast Guard not involved? Because it said we called directly on the phone to the captain, I think, right?
Try to pull the captain out, but as I understand it, the Coast Guard is still asking for a call down to South Portland for authorization.
Maybe Fred should answer that.
Yeah, I'm not absolutely certain on that one, Doug.
How do they work down there? I mean, do they have a list of approved conditions and diseases that they think are okay? Because I'm sure whoever's on duty down there isn't a qualified medical person. How do they do that?
I would address.
Fred one.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Fred.
Hi, Doug.
Hey, Fred.
So what's going on pretty much is what we was doing before, except we do believe from what we've seen since the last time we all met, that the ferry will run for critical patients. That being said, if somebody is ambulatory and able to walk down to the Quicksilver, we will use them. If we can't get the ferry boat, we will use them. If the patient is really critical and a helicopter can fly, we'll fly. It all is determined upon what the patient's ability is and what we have available for crew to move the patient. Everybody would like to say that the ferry will run for every patient. Unfortunately, the ferry will never run for every patient. It's done a really good job in the past, but that's not the ferry service's priority. Their priority is to keep their schedule every day. So if a patient, what we don't want to do is stop that progress. And that's another discussion, but stop that progress by overcalling them because of their day schedule. So we have to be very careful about that. But we have run ferry trips since the last meeting that me and you was in. And I'm happy with that. And I had a good talk with Mr. Higgins, and we talked for quite a while, and we was able to talk out a lot of stuff. There's a new call tree that will go into place. It hasn't gone into place yet because part of the implementation of it hasn't been completed on phones and stuff. So when we've had to go since the last meeting, we still continue to call cruise quarters until that part of the project's done, and then we'll be calling the ferry captain direct. We do have to call the Coast Guard, and we do give them, we can't give them a lot of information about the patient, but we give them the level of care that's required for that patient. I have never found the Coast Guard to refuse a trip thus far. They are knowledgeable about what we're trying to do because they have to call Cape Cod when they send out the swimmer in a helicopter. So they're fairly knowledgeable about this stuff. So it's a working system. I'm in hopes that by working diligently with the ferry captains, that we'll be able to maintain getting the boat when we have somebody that's really sick, or if the conditions are dangerous so that the crew and the patient are at risk. Right now, that's all I can tell you, but if anything else comes up, I'll be updating the select board often, and hopefully you'll be there to be able to listen in.
Okay, Fred, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Fred.
When
Any
are
further questions about the ferry?
I can't read.
winter or summer schedule?
No, okay. Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Is, I know there was a thing in the article that came out in the paper just recently, it just came in about the ferry being on the winter schedule or the summer schedule all along here. Did Mark Higgin say anything about making that more realistic for Islesboro, the winter schedule back on?
I talked to him about that. According to Mark, the 9 trips a day, Monday through Saturday, is his perception of what the current need of service is. And he bases that not so much, just for background, not so much on foot traffic or car traffic, but the truck traffic has increased dramatically. As Maggie reported in the newspaper in November, it was up to 811 one-way truck trips, but that was up from, I think there was a 5-year history. I didn't bring the numbers with me, but basically, if you go back about 5 years and you look at November, the truck traffic's up. I think I calculated 53%. And the 27-foot dump truck brings in it's $116 round trip, so it's $58 each way. And when you do the calculation, if you run it out for 6 months, Mark, we're told on the advisory board, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, that we do not run the ferry. We are the advisory board. I know Janet's heard that like a broken record, but it gets said a lot. And, the ultimate decision as to what kind of a schedule to run, what the schedule is going to be, is ultimately the ferry service and DOT. I think they have done a very good job more recently of listening to our concerns. But we also have this study done by the KPFF consulting firm at the request of the Island Institute. And they did a ferry survey, and the perception is, based on that survey and based on these numbers, that the need for service right now is greater than the former winter schedule.
The thing that struck me in the article was the amount of issues apparently that the crew has with the schedule and them being able to run all these trips with hardly any time to warm up in between. That was new news as far as I knew, and it seems like pretty serious news that somehow ought to be addressed. Do they have any idea how they'll do that, or are they even aware of that, John?
I think they're well aware of it. What they, again, what if anything they're going to do about it in terms of changing things around, I don't know. I kind of made the point during our last meeting that I did ask for with the town's okay, that we
Mhm.
try to extend the 9-trip-a-day schedule longer than through Indigenous Peoples' Holiday, which is halfway through October, because last year I got all kinds of complaints about the reduction of the schedule to 7 days a week, seven runs a day as opposed to 9. But again, I don't know, and again, the island doesn't run the ferry service. I don't run the ferry service. The select board doesn't run the ferry service. We are allowed a voice, but
Mhm.
if there's that much truck traffic, you can't say that what Mark Higgins is doing is illogical.
Mhm. Okay,
And I
thank you.
imagine that it goes a long way with the crew just to understand kind of where things are coming from and to understand the community support for them.
Oh, and I think everyone I've talked to, and I've talked to members of the crew as well, and they're members of our community. And deserve attention, I think, in my personal opinion. And I get that. And I also very much appreciate the great job they do, but it's tough times. I mean, they've got personnel issues and all that. So I don't know, it's a balancing act, and I don't know if there's any silver bullet solution to any of this.
Well, thank you for your attention and persistence.
Keep trying. And I get it, Doug, but, I think it bears, I think the traffic bears watching, and to give some credit, 5 years ago, I don't think anyone knew what the traffic was. And now everyone knows very much what it is. So it's objectively verifiable anyway.
Well, I think the ferry service knew. It was just getting the information that was tough.
Yeah.
So,
But anyway,
Anyway, that's past.
all
Okay.
right, anything else?
not by
Thank
me.
you.
Great,
Did you
thank
say the
you.
email was from Bill Palmer,
Pulver, Pulver.
ULVER?
All right. With that, I'll move on to sea level rise update. The sea level rise committee met last Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Um,
Have a nice holiday, everybody.
You too. We reviewed, and the committee has approved this resilience planner contract position job description that you have in your packet. So I don't think that we necessarily need a formal vote on this because we have grant funding to do the work, but I did want to make sure that the board had a chance to review it, to ask any questions, and hopefully we will be posting it. It may be posted now. I've been emailing with Paige today, but if not today, this week, and hopefully by the third week in January is when we're hoping to start being able to review some applications.
That's exciting.
Hopefully we get some applications.
So is the committee gonna make the decision as to who they pick?
So it
Or who
sounds,
gets picked?
right, it sounds like something that the committee would review and make a recommendation to Janet. And then Janet would extend the offer.
Is your contract, it's a 2-year contract for the 47.5? Okay.
Yeah. Which, so Gabe McPhail, who helped us to write the grant, is somebody who I would consider like in this world and helped make
Right.
sure that that was.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
somebody had asked me a clarification on it.
Yeah.
Because they had heard about it in the pipeline, and I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, I will ask.
Yeah.
So I think you are getting an application.
Excellent,
So-
that is fantastic. And one of the things that we did talk about as a committee is, so it's a 2-year grant. It's designed to be very task-based, and so the timeline is going to be in flux based on when we have somebody on board, but also, it could be a position that could, if working efficiently and with good community process, could, be faster than 24 months.
Right.
Or if it were to go longer, then we'd have to amend the tasks and, figure out what we would need as a community kind of for the next steps, so.
I think it was very nice.
Do I understand Gabe's done now, but she's gonna work with you as a sort of consultant?
So, the grant funding that she was working with us is done. She has, other grant funding to be a resource person, unfortunately for southern Maine counties. So she is not, we're not in her region. There are other, resource folks that have her same kind of position for our region. They've been really helpful. One of those, helped Fred to, submit the FEMA, emergency, management plan grant, so, and Janet and I attended the webinar to kick off this grant last week. I think they stand ready to help, and it sounds like there is a series of webinars at the beginning of January to outline federal infrastructure funds that are coming through the infrastructure bill. So I do think it's worth kind of paying attention to when those come out. I think, Tanya or others in our region would certainly be willing to help us submit additional grants, and we do have funds for grant writing capacity. So
Yeah.
if if Tanya said, I don't have time to take this on,
And Tanya's the one in our area.
Tanya's the one in our area, yeah, then we could potentially contract with somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Gabe has been very generous about volunteering her time because, so she's not gonna not answer the phone just because she, but we just have to be,
You again.
we have to be thoughtful about how we ask her to spend her time with us.
All righty.
Yeah. Any other questions? Great, municipal building update?
No update.
Okay.
We're waiting to see if people pick up the business.
The charges in the warrant for Stephen Black, that is just cover what he has finished so far. That doesn't pay for anything in the future, right?
It's what he's done to date, I think,
Okay.
through, might be through November, I'm not sure, I'm not looking at that.
Okay,
invoice,
well,
but,
okay.
yeah, I mean, he
That
had, I think
answers
it
the
had percentages, like something with 90% done, I mean, I'm sure that up on Garage is 90% done. And Bill handed out 3 packets.
Oh, Great.
Yesterday.
great, that's good news.
Yeah. So, and he was supposed to contact some more and speaking to someone to come in, come into the office and pick them up. So we had 15 sets.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Good.
That was at Circus, wasn't it, Lauren? Getting a packet to get a copy.
Oh, my God.
Took a village or 2.
Great. All right, any other questions on municipal building? Great. Upcoming meetings and subcommittee reports, planning board, January 10th, harbor committee and health center advisory board on January 20th. Any other? Anything to add? All right, town manager report.
All right, I've sent in your packet on the 19th of December, the agenda for the 21st for tonight's meeting, minutes of the December 7th regular meeting, the minutes of the November 16th sea level rise meeting, and a notice, the December 14th notice from the post office regarding correct address procedures. She's new, third temporary postmaster that we've had, and knows nobody, knows no addresses, so, she's trying to break people into doing it correctly, and so the mail can be delivered, so that's her hope. I don't know how long she will be here, but she's kind of like a fixer, I believe, goes in to post offices, and this is quite a challenge for her, so. And regarding new business, I sent you documents relating to the 2023 bond anticipation note, which I will tell you was already signed by Gabe and myself yesterday, because he told me he wasn't coming tonight. So I can mail it to the attorney tomorrow so she can finish preparing it for, I believe the closing for this loan is January 7th or something, but she wanted it by Friday. Make sure I got it in the mail by Friday. I have no correspondence. I've sent you the warrant. Well, I've handed it out to you tonight. And under my report, I just wanted to say we did have a nice reception for Linda Wentworth this afternoon after our annual Christmas party from 2 to 4. I bet 50 people came in through. It was very nice and a lot of hugs for Linda and appreciation. So it was very nice, very nice. And I've given you a copy of it was a framed resolution presented to Linda by Michael Kerr as the chair, and it was prepared by Linda Gillies, which is very nice, and she was very moved by it, so it was very nice.
Nice. Questions? All right, you did manager report and correspondence, so there's no old business. New business, it sounds like you have that has already been completed. Excellent. No other business. So next up is approve warrant number 13 for FY 23. And I did want to make one amendment to it. Is it something that I can, can I make a motion?
Yeah.
I would move to accept warrant number 13 with the amended amount of $347,313.30, which removes the $1,500 charge from Haley Ward.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Looks like we've got 3 appointments to the Board of Appeals: Susan West, Patrick O'Bannon, and Peter Wilcox. I would entertain a motion for that slate.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, in favor?
Aye.
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 Tom Tudor's an excellent recruiter.
Yeah.
Is he just giving us names and we're just appointing them and telling them later?
I know, I didn't follow up on them, so I hope it's true.
Alright. 3. Great. I do not have any other comments tonight, other than happy holidays and happy new year.
Yeah, we have something on that.
At the end, executive session.
Oh, it's after comments.
Yeah.
Say
Not
your
trying-
piece first.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. Stay safe on Friday. Wow, please,
Yes,
everybody.
hopefully there
Yeah.
is no emergency runs needed Friday night.
There-
Happy
No.
solstice.
Oh, right.
Yes.
What?
My favorite day of the year.
Solstice? Happy solstice tomorrow?
Oh.
Today,
Is it today?
today.
Someone said it was today.
Or is it
It
today?
is tomorrow.
Varies
It is
between
today.
21st and 22nd, right?
So this is the shortest day.
Today is winter solstice, shortest day. The
But it
sun,
gets
This will make-
longer and longer.
Oh.
This will make Donna very.
the sun
I think
set
she
in
hasn't heard that
Bangor
today.
at 3:54 today. In the
That's
afternoon.
nice.
3:54.
That's nice.
3:54 was sunset today in Bangor, which is the point that it gets marked out. We were 4:05.
Thank you. All 3 of them.
Phil, were those all your comments?
Yeah.
Phil?
I have nothing.
Happy solstice. Happy solstice.
Happy solstice.
Last word?
That's it.
Okay, Excellent. So with that, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second. Review concealed weapons permits. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you all. Have a good night, Fred and Jennifer. Thanks for joining us.
Everyone
Queenie.
teases me about my leg.
Oh, it's cute.
Like you can tell. I'm a pretty princess.
You're royal. House of Danes.
Should I stop recording at this point?
Yes. Thought we stopped recording when we were making